Republic, give you the executive summary, some commentary, and then take whatever questions you have. I said book 5, but of course we mean scroll 5 because we're
Scroll 5
school
right.
here.
Old school.
So yeah, welcome, friends. This is when stuff gets weird. Talking about the Republic, yeah.
Hold on, it's gonna get real now.
Yeah,
right? It's gonna get real.
Yeah. So get ready for this. And Jim, I'm kind of tempted to maybe give the executive overview because I feel like maybe you have probably maybe some hidden interpretations that might be able to salvage this.
I've got some stuff in the weeds here for you.
Yeah, that's because you have that. I mean, but the common interpretation of book 5 is that it's just filled with provocative, contrarian positions in relation to both, ancient Athenian culture, but also obviously contemporary culture. I mean, what are some examples of this? Well, one would be what we have here is Socrates proposing that women as well as men would make fine guardians or could make fine guardians. So they should be trained and reared as well. Differences in physical strength, but there's sort of
hey, if the women can make it through boot camp, then they're welcome to join.
Then let them in. So that's kind of counterculture, so to speak, for his time there. But then we also get promotions of orgy parties here. We have eugenics. We have community property of things that maybe shouldn't be community property. Right?
It's basically the medieval notion of carnival, right? You're gonna have
right. Yeah. So I guess the idea here in book 5 is, again, Plato, Socrates, he's pushing for unity. How are we going to, this is the kind of central theme of the book, how are we going to get the unity we want? And when it comes to wives and children, there's, of course, this, which strikes us as a pretty radical proposal these days of communal family, because he doesn't want there to be sort of any tension between the family and the state.
Yep.
So, again, just 10,000 foot overview. We'll go get more specific here soon. What's proposed are literally procreation festivals, right? With but only the best should be the ones procreating. So, the best should procreate with the best. However, you don't want to make that obvious. So what you do is you kind of put a lottery system in place.
You have a sham lottery for who gets the hot chicks.
Yeah, right. So people are going to be like, oh, it's just not my lucky day, right?
The way I put it to my students this week was, we're going to have a sham lottery to decide how spring break works out. Is what he's is what Plato has in mind here.
That is a great summary of book 5.
Exactly.
Actually.
Yeah. They're like, now we get it, Dr. Madden. I'm like,
yeah. So spring break with a sham lottery is book 5 of Plato's Republic. So, I mean, look, there's so much going on here. There's so much that sort of rebels against modern sensibilities in so many ways. And there's honestly, there's a lot here that I'm not exactly sure of what to think of it or what to make of it. So I'm just kind of reporting the general reading here. Yeah. So Jim, why don't you pick it up from here and you give us the lay of the land? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the book continues from book 4 into book 5, where we're talking about the education of the guardians, right? And as you pointed out, I mean, it's the guardians will have access. I forget what it is for the merchant classes, but the guardians and auxiliaries will have access to their spouses once a year. Well, and it's like a very temporary spouse thing because it's going to be by lottery every year to sort of maximize the breeding potential here.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Even though it's important to know for Socrates in the Republic, even if both your parents are auxiliaries or guardians, it does not guarantee you a place in that class. You will still be tested when you were young and will be determined. Yeah, it's still a meritocracy. I think that's important. It's like, I think in contemporary America, what we think of as aristocracy is actually what Plato would have called oligarchy, right? Which is simply rule by wealth. By aristocracy, what they mean is rule by the people most capable of real whoop ass, right? Really
by the best.
By the best, yeah. Okay. But anyway, and so you're going to have a lottery system, a sham lottery system deciding who gets to breed with whom, right? There's going to be a deep control on sexual activity because we don't want out of turn breeding because it's going to mess up what we're trying to do here. And I think there's this weird, the only people who can have the most sex that they want are menopausal women.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But if they do have a child, under those circumstances, the child has to be killed. Okay.
Yeah, it cannot thrust itself out of the womb. The language used is pretty gruesome, right? If this thing somehow does manage to thrust itself into the world, then we'll take care of that, right?
Yeah. And so there's yes, there's going to be infanticide, right? All that stuff's going to go on. It's very harsh. You will never have met your children. Okay.
Yeah.
They will try to make it so that no mother actually nurses her baby because
they don't want the connection. Right. Yeah.
It's inevitable that you will recognize that as your kid. Okay.
Right. And you don't want to be separated from it.
Yeah.
That's another thing that they recognize, right? And as a mother isn't going to want to be separated from their kids. And this is obviously we'll get to it, but this is, Glaucon, like at some point says like, this sounds ridiculous. Dude. Is this even possible at all? Right.
Yeah, I know. And actually that's gonna be a very important moment in this. And it's so that, and I love that you pointed out the point about the family. Like we cannot have bond to the family getting in the way of bond to the whole. Okay.
Right. And the reason is because Plato's recognizing that what Socrates, Plato, Socrates, we know why we're using those interchangeably, right? Is that people have a natural tendency to treat their family better, right? So if we're going for unity, we want everybody to think that we're all just one big family.
Yeah.
Right? That's kind of the idea. Yeah.
So I want to say this though. I try not to use Plato and Socrates interchangeably. Because I think there is a rift between Plato and Socrates that we will be able to detect in book 6 on this issue. Okay, so I can't wait.
And let me clarify in case people aren't familiar. Plato's obviously, this is Plato's The Republic, but the character Socrates, right?
So character Socrates, yeah.
So let's make those distinctions.
I think I can make a case in book 6 of where we can see a rift between Plato and Socrates based on like commitment of this sort. So cool. Hold on. Yeah, I'm excited about this. Anyway, so but this idea that like we cannot have familial bonds getting in the way of our commitment to the good of the whole. Okay. This kind of supports a thing that I push throughout the Republic is, like at important moments, Plato brings out this polemic against the tragic poets. Okay. But the only tragic poet that I'm aware of that he mentions in the Republic is Sophocles. Okay. By name. And Sophocles, one of his key plays is Antigone, and where Antigone is this character who is making demands of her commitment to her family that run afoul with the demands of the rational commitments for what's good for the city. Okay. So I think in some ways he's taking up a side in the dialectic that was introduced in the play Antigone right there by saying, look, we have to undermine these familial bonds because otherwise you're going to have the Antigone problem on your hands all the time. Okay. All right. So I think another thing I think to keep in mind about this is why how scandalous is he's basically describing Sparta now. Like this is kind of how things ran in Sparta. I'm not sure, but I think even like hey, if women can like fight well enough, we'll let them fight sort of thing. Okay. And that notion that you get in book 5 where, no man will have a job because he's a man. No woman will have a job because he's a woman. They'll have it because they're best at it. Right. I just don't know historically if the Spartans allowed women to fight or not, so I'm not claiming that. But that idea that like a complete meritocracy just has to do with your effectiveness, period, full stop. And the infanticide, the arranged marriages, the absolute control, it's Sparta. And this is highly controversial because Plato is writing this in the wake of Athens getting their ass kicked by the Spartans, right? Socrates was a disaffected veteran of that war, right? And so he's painting the ideal here as something like the city is currently subjecting Athens, right? I mean, so this is very racy stuff that he's doing here. Okay.
Right.
Okay. And so we get this description of infanticide, arranged marriage, no property, all this stuff. Okay. And then Glaucon raises this question. He says, well, I'm not in. This doesn't sound good, right? This just doesn't sound like the ideal to me.
Right.
Okay?
And it doesn't even sound possible.
It doesn't even sound possible. Okay. And so I just wanted just in terms of like 30,000 foot view, right? You get
that's great.
So you get this discussion, this long discussion of just like almost comically sorted details of what the city is going to be like. You get Glaucon saying this is not plausible because it seems to me like inhumane, right?
Yeah.
And then you get this discussion of what the philosopher should do, like what a philosopher is. Okay, on this notion of belief versus of knowledge. Okay. The philosopher is not concerned with belief, he's concerned with knowledge. Okay. I want to kind of try to like weave all that into a tapestry. Okay. So remember that the book starts out meaning the Republic starts out by saying, well, actually, let me hold off. I won't do that one till we do the cave in the next chapter. But so here's how I did this with my students: is I say, okay, so does this really look to you like what justice should look like in the city, right? And they're all like, no, we don't think the city should get to kill our children, right? Okay, you know what I mean? They shouldn't tell me, okay. Because they basically, they rightly will say, yeah, it does not seem like a just city is run even for the sake of the good by a totalitarian dictatorship, right? Okay, but then I say, but does because they can already see the analogy of what he's going to say justice in the soul is, right? And I'll say, does this kind of look like what justice in the soul should look like to you? And the students are usually, yeah, it does seem about right there. And I said, yeah, so it does seem that the ideal in your personal life would be to run yourself like a totalitarian dictatorship, right? Where the best part of you told the spirited part of you what the appetitive part of you should do for the sake of the whole, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it does seem like he's getting it to, like, he's hitting justice in the individual here, but he's missing it in the city.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, he gets this reply. Okay, so keep that in your back pocket. Glaucon raises his question. He says, look, this doesn't seem great. I wouldn't want to do this. It's not possible. No one's going to agree to this and stuff like that. And Socrates' reply in the dialogue is, well, let's say I could, someone paints you a painting of the ideal man. Okay. And says, yeah, but no one could be that beautiful. No one could be that great. That doesn't mean it's not the ideal. Okay. It doesn't mean there is no ideal, and it doesn't mean it's not the ideal. Okay. All right. I mean, maybe not the best answer, right? Okay, and I wonder how serious that answer is,
right?
Okay.
Because and why? Let's talk about that, right? Because somebody could paint the portrait of an ideal man, and somebody could say intuitively, "Yeah, that sounds like the ideal man." I just don't think anybody could get to that. But the problem with the city is Socrates has painted a portrait of an ideal city that people are just going to say, "No, that doesn't even look like an ideal.
Doesn't even look like the ideal.
Doesn't even look. Forget about that. It's even possible. It doesn't even look ideal, right? Yeah.
Okay, so now we then get this discussion of the philosopher and how what the philosopher wants is knowledge and not belief. Okay. So what is belief? All right. Or opinion for Socrates in the Republic? Well, he says it is concerned not with being, but becoming. Okay. It's concerned with not what is, but how things appear to be. Okay. Now you have to be careful. He's not doing the Matrix here. He's not Descartes. He's not saying because of the possibility of perceptual error that problem does not occur to anyone in Athens at this point. Okay, and he gives an example later of what he means by becoming. It's not just change. Change is part of the story, but it's not just change. He says, well, look, everything that we recognize as beautiful is beautiful, and it's also ugly. Or it's not beautiful. Okay. And what he means there, it's not just that people disagree about it. He means something like, if I say my wife, Jennifer, is beautiful, okay, and I say the sunset is beautiful, right? But they're not at all the same. Okay. So there's a sense in which Jennifer is both beautiful and she's not beautiful, right? And the sunset is both beautiful and not beautiful, right? And so he says, like, they both appear as beautiful. And what by appear here, they don't mean appear like, oh, it seems to be beautiful, but it's not really beautiful because we're being deceived by our senses or something like that. He means appear in the sense like, if I said, Pat Flynn made an appearance today at the office, right? I mean, he was really there, right? He showed up for real. He was there. Okay. And so what Socrates is saying here is particular things they appear both as what they are, but they also appear not to be it, because there are other particular things that appear the same way, but all these particulars are all in their own way different from each other, right? The sunset really is beautiful. It does show up as beautiful, and Jennifer shows up as beautiful, but they're not each other, and they're very different, right? So neither of them is the knowledge of beauty, right? They're both just participants in this form of beauty that would make sense of the appearance across the differences. Do you see that, right? Okay. So the mark of opinion.
We have the seeds of the doctrine of analogy here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, or like if only he had it, it would save him some trouble, right? So the mark of opinion is that what you were claiming to be a certain way both appears that way and appears not to be that way. Okay. All right. But then, okay. So really what just happened in book 5 here, right? We have to admit that the picture of justice that Socrates has given us appears as just in the individual, but it appears as unjust in the city, right? It both is and isn't. Is it being or is it becoming? It's becoming. Okay. So I think what we have here is Socrates is saying, look, you're right. I am not claiming to be the philosopher. I am giving you opinion here, right? It's you know what I mean? It's Socratic humility in a way. I am giving you opinion here, right? And even my claim to what justice is both is and isn't. Okay. And so this is opinion. Right. Do you see what I mean? Okay. And
yeah, I do. And it's a good point, because one could say that, look, this is where I think Socrates would have to be careful, right? Because if we're using stretch concepts, right? It's like similarity in difference, like maybe we shouldn't expect justice to look exactly the same in the city as a soul, but he still needs a tight enough analogy to make his general case, right? Like if it's too stretchy, then the whole project here is just going to be like, there's just going to be no traction, right? You see what I'm saying, right? But if it's tight enough, then I think there's going to be grounds for an appropriate objection of like, yeah, no, I just don't think this is the just state, right? You see what I'm saying, right?
And I think the fact that he's implicitly showing us that what he's expressing in this very dialogue is not knowledge but opinion, right? Has got to change what we think is going on in this book. Okay. You know what I mean? Right. He knows he cannot demonstrate anything, right? By his own position, right? All he can do is get us to recollect something. Okay. And if it just came out full stop, aha, I have found what justice is unproblematically, and I'm going to give you a definition of it, right? That is a contradiction of all the other things that he says in all these previous dialogues about how we humans don't get that in this life, right? Okay. Do you see that? Right. And this will play into how the allegory of the cave unfolds in book 6, right? But in my own reading, my own like spooky reading here, is I think you get a real card show from Plato of a kind of humility about what he's doing here, right? And a kind of consistency with his earlier doctrine about recollection, right? Because if he's right in those earlier doctrines, he should not be able to say, and yes, here is the definition of justice unproblematically. Right.
Yeah, that's really good. I like that a lot. And yeah, it's one of those things, just a few quick thoughts. Like one can see, like what is he going for here? He's looking for proper ordering. He's looking for unity, right? And he's identified certain aspects that, you know, either could or do cause disunity, family bonds, people playing favorites, stuff like that. So like, it's not totally unreasonable why he would think like, if we could like do something about that, maybe we'd be able to have greater unity. But of course, the pushback, our natural pushback, is like, look, I mean, you're not going to get justice through injustice, right? That's sort of just a basic principle of moral reasoning, right? And if it's unjust to, you know, kill babies, which I think it is, like, we got a big problem here. And also, like, I think another like fair pushback would be that things that were identified in the text, right? Is that like there's other aspects of human nature that if you keep trying to push against, themselves are going to create disunity, like trying to separate mother from child, right? Like, so there's just a lot of deep things to consider here, but I'm actually kind of saying like it's not unreasonable to see why he would have thought this way or made this proposal, given what he's thinking about justice, unity, and ordering it.
And this is me sort of, and I have no right to like at the level of classical studies to be questioning Martha Nussbaum, but this is me kind of pushing back a little bit on Martha Nussbaum's reading of the Republic. Okay, so she sees she like me reads Plato in light of Sophocles. Okay, and if I understand what she's up to, she's basically, you have this dialectic between Antigone and Creon. Antigone is the family bond, right? The womanly family bond, and Creon is like the masculine bond to the city and the laws of reason that tell us how the city must operate, right? And I think they're like, if I'm understanding Nussbaum correctly, she's saying she sees Plato as a partisan in that debate, to say, no, it is like Creon's right, and we have to find a way to like undo Antigone entirely. Like, so like, what is because thinking in book 5, he wants to undo the very difference between men and women to the highest degree possible, right? So that women are less bonded to the family, right, than they would otherwise have been. Do you see that? Okay. And so, but I think with this admission here, that what I take is the implicit admission, but this is opinion, this isn't knowledge. He's saying, no, I get that's absurd. That is the appearance of injustice, not justice, right? And so even the conception of justice I'm giving you here is unsettled, right? Does that make sense, right? And so I don't see Plato as this partisan for the Creon side of the dialectic in Sophocles' Antigone, right? And I think he's seeing it as much more problematic, and that we cannot just reject these bonds, right?
Interesting.
Without saying this, we've gone into an idealization that is unrealizable, and we wouldn't want it if anyway, which is to say it's not an ideal, right? Yeah.
Good. Okay, then. So if you were to summarize in just a few quick sentences the big takeaways that people should get from book 5, they would be:
he is digging the hole even deeper for himself, and the promises that he made, that he was going to show us what justice is, because he seems to say, I haven't done that, and he's gonna show that it's desirable, right? And what did Glaucon just say? It's not desirable if you're talking about at the level of the state, right? And Socrates' reply is, well, hey man, it's the ideal, but that doesn't answer. It seems like an ideal that I wouldn't desire, right?
Right.
And what is an undesirable ideal mean? It's not the ideal, right?
It's not the good as that which all desire.
It's not the good, right? And so this once again is why I think we have to see the Republic as a much more complicated book than we typically think of it as, and much more nuanced. And what Plato's actual skin in the game is more subtle, right? Than we expect. Yeah.
Excellent. Beautiful. Good. All right. Well, we've got book 6 next, which is a big one.
Big one, man.
Big one. And we'll try and get that probably done next week, right? Keep
let's go, man.
Along here.
Let's go. I'm loving this.
Yeah, this has been a blast. Gentle listeners, if you find this helpful, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Jim, any things you want to announce before we go here?
No, nothing new today. But hey, I'm enjoying this series. I hope people are enjoying it, and hit us with your questions here or elsewhere. Right? This has been fun.
Yeah. All right, guys.
We're halfway through the Republic.
Yeah, pretty good so far. Enjoy your Friday. We'll catch you next time. Adios.